Welcome to the show. It's a Monday. I'm joined by Rod Mullins. We're going to talk some NASCAR. What happens in Vegas doesn't always stay in Vegas. We're going to talk about the NASCAR race in Vegas. Kyle Larson, the big winner. Rod, tell us, how did Kyle get to the win, and give us some of the breakdown of how the race went.
Well, Kyle got to the win really by just being consistent all the way around. Won all three stages, of course, including the final thing of the race, like we were talking about. He led 181 laps of 267, and he just dominated the way I look at it. He just dominated in this whole thing. Kyle Busch, though, led the second most laps at 18, but that's the far cry right there, the far cry between those two. And, things look good for some of these other drivers. I thought that at first William Byron might have a chance at being able to pull off the trick and, win from last week or from the first Daytona race, then moving to Las Vegas and winning. Thought he was going to have a chance at it. Daniel Suarez was running well there for a little bit, but some things happened where there was some shuffling, pit stops, and so forth. It kind of took him out of the running. But Larson stayed consistent throughout this race, and I think that's what he needed to do. There were a lot of people said that Byron would probably win this race at Las Vegas, that he would have a fair chance at it. But in the end, I mean, Larson picks up the win. It was a big win too. He beat Tyler Reddick, and they have finished. Oh, I think they finished 1 and 2 the last couple of times they have raced, and Kyle Larson has won. And I think the best way to say it was Tyler Reddick's comment at the end of the race. Same crap, different day is pretty much the way that the race went for him, and I kept it censored this time around. So that's where we're going to go with that.
What happened with Chris Buescher? I know that there's a lot of talk about the issue with his tire. I mean, basically completely coming off of the tire off the wheel there. I mean, okay, so one that could be scary, obviously very scary. Is it just as simple as somebody didn't tighten the lug nuts good enough, or is there a technical issue there?
We don't know yet at this point. NASCAR's going to have to look at it. The way that it looked, first, it was thought that he had a tire that went down. Okay, so that's what started. It was the right front, is what they thought. And then as they slowed it down on slow motion and watched the replay, you see the tire kind of bunched up toward the back. It's like it had come completely off and had gotten caught in the wheel well part of the car. And then suddenly you see something shoot out from the side, and it was the rim itself. And then you saw the lug, just the one lug nut now that they have, it went bouncing across the track, and then that rim came completely off. So this car landed on, what was left of the rotor and everything else that it landed on. And it took him out because, I mean, it messed up the toe end, everything on the car. There was no chance for him getting back into it. But it's still, that's one of those weird things. I mean, did it get hot? Did something separate? Was it, a bad manufacturing deal with the way that the rim was? Who knows about this? So NASCAR is going to have to probably take a look at it. There was a problem though yesterday. A lot of people were wondering, would they be able to get through the race with their tires, because they were allotted 9 sets of tires and they were using them up pretty quick. It's not that they were being used up so quick or they were having problems with them, but it was like, okay, we've got to make a pit stop. Let's make a switch to the tires. And that's what they would do. And then it kind of slowed down as the afternoon went on. They didn't have to have them as much. They didn't think that they were going to have to use them. So they were able to at least hold on to what they had of the allotment, but they were really worried there at first because there were several blown left rears, I think, on tires on the cars yesterday in some of the race.
So yeah, some studying got to be done. They got to figure out, is it
Right.
the tires? Is it what's the track? I guess. I mean, they got to look at
Mhm.
what's going on there. That's interesting.
Yep.
Scary situation too, perhaps. And we got some big news we're going to talk about, but let's get to the whether this is big news too. Honda and NASCAR. Looks like things are progressing there. Give us an update.
Yeah, progressing so much that I almost fell for clickbait last week, seeing this come up on Facebook. Someone had put up a meme or something about Dale Earnhardt Jr. possibly coming into the Cup Series with his own team with JR Motorsports in 2026, and Honda would be the car that would be out on the track. Now that kind of surprised me. And I first started thinking about it and I said, well, I've not heard anything. I know that they've been talking to several different car manufacturers. We talked about Dodge here. I think here in the last little bit of, Dodge, are they going to come back into it? I know that I've got a student or two that's talked to me and asked me, do you think Dodge will ever come back? And I told him, I said, yeah, there's a possibility that they could come back, but the moment's going to have to be right for them. I think the same thing goes for Honda. Now, whether or not they get Dale Earnhardt Jr., that remains to be seen, but Honda will look for someone much like what Toyota did when they came into the series, and that's look for someone that's going to stand out and be a little bit different from all the rest. And who knows where that could end up. I mean, you've got teams that are, shuffling right now with Ford. Stuart Haas is going through some troubles, although I've got to brag and say that Noah Gregson finished the race yesterday. I mean, gosh, he finished, I think, top 10 in the race. And it was a great improvement for him after what had happened last week. So that was a plus there. Some of these teams are going to be looking for someone to go to. And I don't know if they think that Chevrolet is going to be still there or Ford is letting down their guard, so to speak. But, Chevrolet has won 3 races so far on the season. They've came out of the gate. Ford has had the pole at Las Vegas. They also, I think, had it at Atlanta and at Daytona, but they can't seal the deal. So Chevrolet has ended up winning the races. Ford has managed to get on the pole, but Toyota has yet to be able to get in the winner's circle right now. So we might see some changes before it's over with. Honda, good possibility. I've seen some mock-ups, the way some of these guys have so good at Adobe with Photoshop, and they put up some good mock-ups of what they tend to think is going to be the Accord. I don't know if that's going to be it or not, but they look nice. That's one thing to say about it, but looking nice and being on the track at the same time, that remains to be seen. So.
You mentioned Dale Jr.'s name a little earlier. There's news with Dale Jr. That's not clickbait. um,
Right.
and it involves, well, I mean, the more, I guess things are evolving, if you want to call this evolution. He'll be leaving NBC, but it's not leaving the broadcast booth. Tell us about Dale Jr.
Well, we got through the first part of the season here with Daytona, and the talk was Dale Jr. had not signed with NBC yet. He was still without a contract. A lot of people were surprised with that. They thought, oh, it's just something that's going to be worked out in the details. They've got an agreement with him right now, or they had an agreement with him of where Dirty Mo Media was showing the Dale Jr. download on NBC on like the sports channels and things like that. But now I don't know. I don't know how that's going because I've not been able to keep up that much with the Dale Jr. download here in the last couple of weeks. But suddenly, out of the blue, last week came the announcement that Dale Jr. is going to be signing with Amazon Prime and also signing with Warner Brothers Discovery. Now, who knows where that's going right now, because that's one of those things that is up in the air. Who knows what Warner Brothers is going to end up doing, although they have, kind of got their hands into the pot now. They are going to be going into this new thing. They're going to be carrying Xfinity races on the CW here for the future. And so that's one of those situations of where Nexstar, I believe, is the people that ended up purchasing the CW, but they're going to have an outlet. And so this Warner Brothers Discovery thing has really taken off in this case. And I think Dale Jr. wanted to stay at home a little bit more. He was on the road. And, you probably remember the scary scene that happened, down about Elizabethton prior to the Bristol race here several years ago when him, his wife, and Issa, at the time, they were on the plane. They crashed, and a lot of people were panicking, thought Dale Jr. was dead out of the whole thing. He survived, but, I think something has been telling him to one degree or another, yeah, you can still do some racing, but I think he is right now trying to involve himself, if you want to say, as NASCAR's ambassador, so to speak. I know he's got a big hand in this Netflix produced series that's gone on NASCAR that has gotten rave reviews. They tried it with NBC. I don't know if NBC's target audience was maybe in the same ballpark as what Netflix kind of was open to, but they have done such a great job with this Netflix series. They're talking about more, and Dale Jr. was the executive producer of it. So we may be seeing something more out of Dale Jr. coming from the standpoint of being an executive producer or, contributor or something like that for the future. He's still going to do some races and call them on that. Still going to do some racing, as a matter of fact. He's already talked about doing some racing again for this year. So it remains to be seen what we'll find out of his full schedule. This won't happen until next year. So he's going to be sitting out all of 2024. He'll be watching, seeing what's going on in the series. NBC will have to hire somebody and put him in the booth. We'll have to wait and see who that's going to be. But he's going to be missed. I always liked enjoyed listening to his take on things up in the booth, and it's not because I'm a big Dale Jr. fan. I think he's just done well with it. I think he has taken the ball, he's ran, and he's done a fantastic job, and still continues to do a fantastic job when he has to talk about NASCAR.
Yeah, but Amazon's throwing out funny money. I mean, they're the monopoly money to them. It's crazy what they're doing with all their media rights purchases. So I don't blame him for taking the money and running and taking a year off. Hey, good for him too.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I think taking the other thing I think is, taking that big step with him, whereas they took that big step with Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit when they brought them over for football. People thought, is this going to work? And it has worked. I mean, Al Michaels has pretty much now said, I'm on Amazon now. I'm not going to be going back to NBC or any other network. I'm stuck here for NFL football. So that and it was only a progression after that. Who are you going to get for the big name? Kevin Harvick's already taken, so Harvick is already with Fox. So why not go for the man that's the face sort of NASCAR to a certain degree right now with his media empire that he has and what he has all together with JR Motorsports or Junior Motorsports, and that's Dale Jr. and they got him.
yeah, I mean, and Netflix is in this too. Netflix bought WWE Raw for $500 million a year for the next 10 years. I mean, those companies that's where the money is right now in the media business, and they're doing a great job. And it's good for everybody. It's certainly good for all those guys. They're going to make more money as a result. So good for them.
The
Hey,
whole
as we're
broadcast thing is going to change is what
oh,
I'm getting at. I mean, you've
that's
already said it.
yeah,
WWE, I mean, they're
yeah,
already on Netflix. The whole thing is going to change. I mean,
yeah,
when they get through into this and we're going to see it, there are people asking the question whether or not we're going to see pay-per-view for NASCAR. I don't think it'll come to that just yet, but they're going to provide other ways. And we've not seen the last of this deal with Amazon. I just don't think that, 5 races or whatever the deal is going to be. I think that's just enough to whet the appetite
yeah.
and then see how it's going to go. And then when you've got that name of Dale Jr. attached to it, yeah, we'll see where it goes from there and stuff. We may see a totally different NASCAR than what we've seen on Fox and NBC over the past 20 years, something of that sort. So it's going to be really interesting when they finally get into the game starting in 2025.
Some of those different broadcasts too. I've watched. I mean, because the baseball, Apple TV bought some baseball games rights the last couple of years. YouTube TV did, or no, it was not even YouTube TV. It was YouTube.
Yeah.
And if you want to watch your favorite team, you got to sometimes put on those channels. They do different things, like you said, the
Yep.
the way the broadcasts are, and so they'll be more stat heavy or and plus the universe with this whole thing now. You see, it started with the NFL with the Manning cast on Monday Night Football,
Right.
but now there's similar type things with the NBA, with other NFL games. Um, I can see something like that for NASCAR too. Hey, you don't want to hear Dale Jr. and the lead play-by-play guy? Let's here's the alternative broadcast number one. Here's alternative number two, and
Yep.
you can listen to kind of the people you want to listen to. So
Yep.
the possibilities are really endless out there as far as all this goes.
Well, it also opens up another possibility. NASCAR is expanding with all of this technology. I kind of made a prediction back about 10 or 15 years ago that it would get to a point of where if we were watching NASCAR.com, we could watch an individual driver
Yeah,
and we could
yeah,
see what's going on in the car and actually watch that. And YouTube has, I'm a subscriber to YouTube TV, and I've been really pleased with what they've been doing, especially with the tail end of the season, college football, and now college basketball, to where I could watch four different games on one channel and go to it and then select the one that I want to watch. And last night that came into so much, I mean, so much importance to me when I was watching Virginia and Virginia Tech in the women's game. I just loved it. And so I just went straight to it after that. But that's one of the changing scenes, the changing thing about what the guard is going to be at NASCAR. And I think that you're going to see people like Mike Joy and some others along the line that's going to kind of go by the wayside. And I don't mean it bad about Mike Joy. He's a great announcer, still got some years left in him. I know a lot of people have been rough on him here over the last few years. It seems like he doesn't pay attention to a lot of things that's going on. But folks, it's a lot harder than you think it is. I mean, it's not just a matter of you watching the television and calling it the way that you're seeing it. They have to watch all these different monitors of all these different camera people, and you're familiar with that. I mean, you've done ESPN three or done baseball, college
yeah,
baseball for them. It's a much different setup, and there's times you're going to miss things.
yeah.
There's times you're going to catch things. It's just the nature of the beast.
The hard part of broadcasting is you're watching the game, you're watching a couple of TV monitors, and this I mean, NASCAR with 35, 50, 40 cars, whatever on the track. Uh, I'm watching either I did baseball, I did basketball, I did football. So
Mhm.
you're watching a couple monitors, you're actually watching the actual action. You got somebody in your ear, and you got somebody in your other ear. You got a producer in one ear, and director in the other ear, and you're hearing all this stuff going on. And at first, it is like you can't keep up, but eventually you do get into it. But yeah, it's not just like watching TV and talking with your buddy sitting on the couch.
No,
It is
it's
a
not.
fun job, but it's a difficult job.
Mhm. Yep, it is.
All right, so let's as we get ready to wrap up, NASCAR makes its first visit of the season to Phoenix, where the season will end in November. So, this is interesting. I mean, I wonder how much it's so early in the season for the guys to be the teams to be out there in Phoenix. I mean, obviously it's an important race just because it's early in the season, but also, I mean, it's a chance to get reconnaissance on how you're going to do when things roll back around if you're one of those final four cars. So I wonder how much of that factors into prep for this week.
Well, I think there's a lot of things that, of what they got from the fall, especially in November when they ran the final race there. But also, it's a chance for them to set up and understand the short car program or the short race, the short track program all together with the car. Because if they get finished and get through Phoenix real well, guess where they have to go next week? And that is Bristol. So they have to get ready for Bristol and have their short track package set up. And Bristol's going to be a totally new bear this year. This is going to be something that, no dirt. They're going to be setting up on concrete, and it's going to be different than what it is normally in August or September when they run the race under the lights at Bristol. They're still going to run the race under the lights at Bristol, I think, starting around 3:30, and it'll go into the evening and so forth, but it's not going to be the same thing. So, this thing with Phoenix, what they're going to be doing, much of the same is they're trying to figure out how this car is working, how this car is being able to give them. I think what the big thing was at Las Vegas yesterday, and what they're going to be looking for, especially with Phoenix and Bristol, is going to be downforce. That's what they're going to need in order for them to be able to keep that car on the track and to be able to keep that car from spinning around. Las Vegas posed some problems for them. We saw some in qualifying, some teams whipped around and they lost control of their car. And that was to be expected. But, hey, if it happens at Bristol, if it happens at a Phoenix, you've got the whole pack behind you, and you're going to have a big wreck. It could be one of the rivals of what you'd see of the big one at Daytona, but it would be on a short track scale. So, yeah, they're getting ready for this. This is just one of those where they're taking notes. They're going in with a fresh setup to see how things are going to look, and then use that as a little bit of knowledge and get ready for the race coming up the next weekend at Bristol. And then also with the flat surface, we can't forget Circuit of the Americas down in Texas is where they're going to be going after the Bristol race. So there you go. You're going to tracks, and also Richmond on March 31st on Easter. That's going to be switching up. You're going to a track that doesn't have as much banking. You're actually going from flat to banking and then back to flat again with a little bit of banking by the time you get to Richmond. So it's going to be an experiment on what they're going to be doing here for about the next 4 races.
And we'll plug the fact that Rod, you talked about Bristol there a couple times. You will be there for that race weekend, and of course on the Sunday race on March 17th. So, man, it's not that far away, and it's coming. Oh, for those who don't listen every week, one, shame on you, but two, we've talked about how it's earlier this year. It's a month earlier, basically, than it is most
Yep.
years.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping right now the long-term weather forecast, looking out at it, not too bad. I think they're calling actually for maybe some showers or something coming up for this weekend. I don't know how it's going to be. They're calling for warmer than normal, so I'm kind of hoping we'll have a good race time when we get to Bristol on March 17th, the 16th and 17th actually. There'll be a truck race down there, and then also the Cup race will be on that Sunday. So yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be good weather. I can stand a little bit of cool in the air and so forth. That doesn't bother me too bad. But snow, I don't want to be out making snow angels out on the track at Bristol. And like I said before, I think I said it to you. I've been to one race at Bristol when I was a fan sitting in the stands, and I'm going to tell you, it was one of the most miserable experiences I have ever had in my life. I sat there and I like to froze to death, and I just could not. I've never been able to get that out of my head, except for that one Tech and UVA game that we went with you guys when you had to cover the race and we were there. But man, that was miserable, and I'm just hoping it's not going to be miserable. I'd love to see a good fan contingent come out for this track. They're getting back to the 90s. They're going back to 90s, almost like 90s pricing, so to speak. The look, I mean, they're painting the walls. It's not going to be what they have been for the last little bit of black. They're going to be red and white, the way that they used to look around that track. And they're bringing back that slogan too, racing the way it ought to be. So, I mean, they've got a lot of things planned, not exactly a retro sort of weekend like they've had at Darlington before, but still going to be something to talk about.
Looking forward to that. And of course, for our listeners and viewers out there, this week we will have our recap and everything from Phoenix coming up on the weekend. And Rod and I will get back together next week and get you ready for Bristol. Well, hey, Rod, as always, thank you for your time and your insight.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thanks.